The massive space station hung in the darkness above Kepler 442b, like a giant metal flower. Its 12 arms stretched out from the center, each one representing one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Today, these ancient beings had gathered for something they had never done before. They were about to destroy an entire species. Admiral Thexel stood at the center of the great chamber. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. The Zephyrian had lived for over 2,000 years, and in all that time, he had never seen the Council so united about anything. But the humans had made them all agree on one thing: they were dangerous. "My fellow Council members," Thexel began, his voice ringing like glass bells. "We have watched the humans for 300 years. In that short time, they have spread to 47 star systems. They build weapons faster than any species we have seen. They ask too many questions. They want to know everything about our technology, our history, our weaknesses." The Hive Collective spoke next. Their representative was a tall, thin creature with black skin that seemed to move like liquid. When they talked, 1,000 voices spoke as one. "We have touched their minds. They are not like other species. Where others feel fear when they meet us, humans feel curiosity. Where others submit to our power, humans study us to find ways to fight us." Around the chamber, other council members nodded in agreement. The Luminari, beings made of pure energy, flickered with nervous light. The rock-like granite kings rumbled their approval. The gas-dwelling whisper folk made sounds like wind through caves. 300 years, said Elder Quinn of the Luminari, her voice like the sound of stars singing. "Most species take 2,000 years to spread to even 10 systems. The humans have done it in 300. If we wait another 100 years, they will be too strong to stop." Thexel activated the great display in the center of the room. It showed a map of the galaxy, with human colonies marked in red. The red dots were scattered everywhere, not grouped together like most species preferred. It looked like a disease spreading through the galaxy. "Look at their pattern," Thexel said. "They do not stay close to their home world like civilized species. They jump to distant stars. They put colonies near our trade routes. They act like they own the galaxy already." The collective spoke again. "We have tried to guide them. We sent diplomats to teach them proper behavior. They listened politely, then asked us why we had the right to make rules for everyone else. No species has ever asked us that question." "Because," rumbled King Basalt, "of the Granite people. Every other species understands that we are their betters. We have ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. We brought peace where there was war. We brought order where there was chaos. The humans do not respect this." Elder Quinn's energy form pulsed brighter. "They study our weaknesses. Every human, diplomat, every trader, every scientist who visits our worlds asks questions. They want to know how our ships work, how our weapons function, how our governments make decisions. They are planning something." "The time for patience is over," Thexel declared. "I call for a final ultimatum. We give the humans one last chance to submit to galactic law. If they refuse, we destroy them completely." The vote was quick. 12 species, 12 votes for war. Not one council member spoke for the humans. Thexel began recording the message that would be sent to every human world. His crystal body glowed as he spoke the words that would change the galaxy forever. "To the human species, from the Galactic Council. You have grown too fast and spread too far. You do not respect the order that has kept peace in this galaxy for 50,000 years. Therefore, we give you this final warning. You have 72 standard hours to surrender all military ships and weapons. You will submit to genetic changes that will make you less aggressive. You will agree to stay within your home system of Sol forever. If you do not agree to these terms, we will destroy every human world and every human life. This message will not be repeated." As the message was sent across the galaxy, the council members felt satisfied. They had been more than fair. Most species that challenged the council were destroyed without warning. The humans were getting a chance that no other species had ever received. "What do you think they will do?" asked the representative of the Cloud Swimmers. a species that lived in the atmosphere of gas giants. They will surrender, Thexel said confidently. They are young and weak. When they see our power, they will beg for mercy like all the others. But Elder Quinn was not so sure. I have studied the humans more than any of you. They are not like other species. They have something we have not seen before. What? Asked the collective. They remember their dead, Quinn said softly. Most species forget their wars after a few generations. Humans write down every battle, every loss, every mistake. They learn from everything, and they never forget who hurt them. Thexel laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. What can memory do against the might of the Council? We have 10,000 ships. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have ruled this galaxy since before their sun was born. Perhaps, Quinn said. But I have read their history. When humans are threatened with extinction, they do not surrender. They fight harder. The Cloud Swimmer representative made a sound like wind rushing through valleys. You worry too much, Elder Quinn. No species can stand against the Council. The humans will surrender or they will die. Far away, on the blue world called Earth, President Chen Wei stood in the command center deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. Around her, dozens of screens showed the locations of every human ship, every colony, every defense station. The Council's message had been received 20 minutes ago. Ma'am, said General Harris, we're getting responses from all the colonies. They're asking for orders. Chen Wei looked at the timer counting down from 72 hours. 71 hours and 40 minutes left. She thought about her daughter, who was studying on Mars. She thought about the million children living on the farming world of New Eden. She thought about the Council's arrogance, their assumption that humans would simply roll over and die. Send out Protocol Omega, she said quietly. Ma'am, are you sure? General Harris asked. Once we activate Omega, there's no going back. The Council thinks we're children playing with toys, Chen Wei said. They're about to learn that human children can be very dangerous when cornered. The message went out on channels so secret that most humans didn't know they existed. 2. Words that every human military officer, every colonist, every ship captain had been waiting 300 years to hear. Protocol Omega. Across human space, the preparations began. Weapons that had been hidden for decades were brought out of storage. Ships that looked like peaceful traders revealed their true purpose. Mining stations in asteroid belts suddenly showed their real function as weapons factories. And from every human world, every human ship, every human station, the same response went back to Earth. Not to the Council, but to their own government. We remember Terra Nova. We remember the children. No surrender, no mercy. We are ready. The Council expected fear. They expected negotiations. They expected the humans to beg for their lives. What they got was silence. Complete, total silence. As if the entire human species had simply stopped talking to the galaxy and started talking only to each other. In the Council chamber, Admiral Thexel felt the first small touch of doubt. In 2,000 years of life, he had never seen a species respond to a Council ultimatum with silence. But he pushed the doubt away. Soon, the humans would learn what happened to species that defied the Council. Soon, the galaxy would be peaceful again. He had no idea that the humans had been preparing for this day since they first learned that other species existed. He had no idea that every human colony, every human ship, every human scientist had been working toward one goal for 300 years, the survival of humanity, and the complete destruction of anyone who threatened it. 48 hours had passed since the Council's ultimatum, and something was happening that had never happened before in the history of the galaxy. The humans had gone completely silent. Admiral Thexel stood before the great viewing screen in the Council chamber, watching the countdown timer. 24 hours remained. Around him, the other Council members showed signs of confusion that they tried to hide. Nothing, reported the Hive Collective. Our psychic probes detect human minds, but they are different, focused, cold. We cannot read their intentions. Elder Quinn of the Luminari flickered with nervous energy. This is not normal behavior. In our records, when faced with extinction, species either surrender immediately or begin desperate negotiations. The humans are doing neither. Perhaps they are paralyzed by fear, suggested King Basalt of the Granite Kings. Some species become unable to act when faced with overwhelming power. But Thexel was beginning to doubt this explanation. He had been monitoring human communications since the ultimatum was sent. For the first 6 hours, there had been normal traffic between human worlds. Commercial messages, personal communications, news broadcasts. Then suddenly everything stopped, not just the communications that the Council could intercept, everything. It was as if every human in the galaxy had suddenly decided to stop talking to anyone outside their own species. "Show me the human colonies," Thexel ordered. The display changed to show real-time images from spy satellites near human worlds. What Thexel saw made his crystal body dim with concern. The human worlds looked empty. Ships that should have been moving between planets were nowhere to be seen. Space stations that normally buzzed with activity showed no signs of life. Even Earth itself seemed dark and quiet. "Where are they?" he whispered. The question was answered by Captain Vex of the Shadow Fleet, the Council's intelligence service. Vex was a member of the Night People, a species that had evolved in the darkness between stars. His black skin seemed to absorb light, making him almost invisible even in the bright chamber. "Admiral," Vex said in his whisper-quiet voice, "we have lost track of approximately 60% of human ships. They were in their normal locations 36 hours ago. Now they are simply gone." "Gone?" Thexel's voice rose to a dangerous pitch. "How does an entire fleet just disappear?" "We are investigating. Our long-range sensors detect no debris, no signs of battle. The ships have simply vanished." Elder Quinn pulsed with worried light. "I told you the humans were different. No species has stealth technology advanced enough to hide from our sensors." "Impossible," King Basalt rumbled. "We have ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. Our technology is beyond anything these children could develop." But even as he spoke, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human trading posts that had been active for decades were now empty. Human diplomatic missions had recalled their staff. Human scientists who had been working on joint projects with Council species had simply packed up and left without explanation. The collective spoke with their 1,000 voices, but for the first time in centuries they sounded uncertain. "We are detecting massive movement in human space, but we cannot determine what they are moving or where. It is as if they have learned to hide from us." On the secret human world of Sanctuary, hidden in a nebula that scrambled all sensors, Admiral Sarah Knox stood in the command center of the largest military base humanity had ever built. Around her, holographic displays showed the location of every human ship, every weapon, every soldier. "Status report," she ordered. "Fleet Admiral," said Captain Torres, "all civilian populations have been evacuated to safe worlds. All military assets are in position. All stealth systems are operating at maximum efficiency." Knox nodded. She was a tall woman with gray hair and scars on her hands from her years as a fighter pilot. She had been preparing for this day for 20 years, ever since she had been chosen to lead Operation Fenrir. "What about the colonies that the Council can still see?" "All volunteer crews, ma'am. 300 people on each visible world, maintaining the illusion that the colonies are still inhabited. They know what they signed up for." Knox felt a cold weight in her stomach. Those brave volunteers would probably die when the Council attacked, but their sacrifice would give humanity the element of surprise it needed. "And our friends in the Council Intelligence Service?" Captain Torres smiled grimly. "Dr. Park's infiltration program has been active for 50 years. We have agents in every Council species except the Luminari. They've been feeding us information and creating false reports for decades." Knox walked to the main display, which showed a real-time map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Council military bases and fleet positions. Blue dots showed where human forces were really located. The Council thought they knew where humanity's strength lay. They were completely wrong. "The Council expects us to surrender or fight a desperate defense around Earth," Knox said. "They have no idea that we evacuated Earth's population 2 days ago. They have no idea that our real fleets are positioned behind their worlds, not in front of them." She activated her communication system and sent a message to every human commander in the galaxy. It was only 5 words long, but it carried the weight of 300 years of preparation. "Remember Terra Nova. Begin Phase 1. Across the galaxy, human forces that had been hiding in asteroid fields, nebulas, and behind planets began to move, but they were not heading toward Earth to defend it. They were heading toward Council worlds to attack them. Back in the Council chamber, Admiral Thexel was growing more worried by the hour. The silence from human space was unnatural. Species that were about to be destroyed should be screaming, begging, trying to negotiate. The humans were doing none of these things. Perhaps, suggested the representative of the Wind Dancers, we should send a small fleet to investigate, to see what the humans are actually doing. No, Thexel said firmly. We will not change our plan because of this strange behavior. When the time limit expires, we will attack with our full force. Whatever the humans are planning, it will not matter against 10,000 council ships. But Elder Quinn was studying the sensor reports with growing alarm. Admiral, look at these energy readings from human space. There are power sources we cannot identify, weapons signatures we have never seen before. Impossible, Thexel repeated, but his voice lacked conviction. The collective had been quiet for several minutes, which was unusual for them. When they finally spoke, their 1,000 voices carried a note of fear. We have been trying to probe human minds across the galaxy. What we find disturbs us greatly. What do you find? Thexel demanded. Preparation, planning, and something else. Something we have never encountered in any species before. What? Anticipation. The humans are not afraid of our ultimatum. They are eager for it to expire. In the silence that followed this announcement, every council member felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in the chamber. On Earth, in the empty command bunker beneath Colorado, a skeleton crew of 20 humans monitored the countdown timer. 18 hours remained. President Chen Wei had evacuated with the rest of Earth's government to a safe location, but she had left behind a recorded message that would be broadcast when the council fleet arrived. General Harris, one of the few people remaining on Earth, read the message one more time. It was simple and direct, like everything about the human response to the Council's ultimatum. To the Galactic Council, you wanted to see what humanity is capable of when threatened with extinction. You are about to find out. You should have left us alone. The general sealed the message and set it to broadcast automatically when Council ships entered the solar system. Then he and his team headed for their escape ships. Earth would soon become a battlefield, and they had no intention of dying pointlessly. As their ships lifted off from the abandoned planet, Harris looked back at the world where humanity had been born. In a few hours, Council forces would arrive expecting to find a cowering population ready to surrender. Instead, they would find something that no species in the galaxy had ever seen before. They would find humanity's true face, and that face was not afraid, it was smiling. The timer reached 0. Admiral Thexel stood at the center of the Council's greatest fleet. 10,000 ships arranged in perfect formation as they approached the Sol system. Around him, the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion hummed with the confidence of 50,000 years of unchallenged rule. The other council members had remained at the station, but they watched through quantum links as their enforcement fleet moved to crush the human rebellion. Long-range sensors are detecting the human system, reported Commander Zix, a granite king whose rocky hide was scarred from 100 battles. Preliminary scans show something is wrong. Thexel's crystal body caught the light from the navigation displays. Define wrong, Commander. Sir, we're detecting almost no energy signatures from the inner planets. Earth should be showing massive power output from its cities and industries. Instead, it's nearly dark. They're hiding, said Captain Moore of the Hive Collective, her voice carrying the wisdom of 1,000 linked minds. Some species attempt to camouflage their worlds when faced with superior force. But as the fleet moved deeper into the system, the wrongness became more apparent. Mars, which intelligence reports showed as a major industrial center, appeared completely lifeless. The asteroid mining stations that should have been bustling with activity were silent and dark. Even the gas giant mining operations around Jupiter showed no signs of life. This makes no sense, Thexel muttered. Scans show the infrastructure is still there. The cities, the factories, the space stations. But there are no life signs. Commander Zix studied his displays with growing confusion. Admiral, it's as if the entire human population just left. Left for where? Thexel demanded. Our intelligence networks have been tracking human movements for 300 years. They have 47 colonies, and we know the location of everyone. There's nowhere for billions of humans to hide. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Vex of the Shadow Fleet materialized beside Thexel. his form rippling like darkness made solid. "Admiral," Vex said in his whisper-quiet voice, "I've been analyzing our intelligence reports for the past 50 years. I believe we have made a critical error." "What kind of error?" "We assumed we knew all the human colonies because they made no effort to hide them from us. But what if they wanted us to know about those colonies? What if they've been building secret worlds while we watched the obvious ones?" Thexel felt a chill run through his crystal form. "You're suggesting they've been deceiving us for 50 years? 300 years, Vex corrected. From the moment they made first contact with us, every human diplomat, trader, and scientist has been gathering intelligence while pretending to be peaceful explorers. As if summoned by these words, a transmission began broadcasting from Earth. The fleet's communication officers routed it to the main screen, where the image of an elderly human appeared. General Harris looked tired but determined as he spoke. "To the Galactic Council fleet now entering our system, welcome to humanity's final examination. You wanted to see what we're capable of when threatened with extinction. You believed we would surrender when faced with superior numbers and technology. You were wrong." Harris paused, and behind him, the humans could see displays showing the positions of council ships throughout the galaxy. "While you have been congratulating yourselves on your inevitable victory, we have been preparing for this moment for 300 years. Every human who has ever spoken to a council species has been gathering information. Every diplomatic meeting, every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange has been intelligence gathering." Thexel felt his confidence begin to crack. "Impossible. Our security measures are—" "Your security measures," Harris continued as if he could hear the Admiral's protests, "were designed to stop species that think like you. They were never designed to stop a species that makes friends with its enemies and learns everything about them." The transmission shifted to show a tactical display of the galaxy. Council worlds were marked in red, and as the humans watched in growing horror, blue dots began appearing around every red world. "While your fleet moves to attack our home system, our real fleets have taken position around your homeworlds. Every council species, every major military base, every government center is now within range of human weapons." Commander Zix turned to Thexel, his rocky face showing disbelief. "Admiral, this has to be a bluff. They can't possibly have forces positioned around every council world. We would have detected them." But even as he spoke, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian homeworld reported unknown ships decloaking in their outer system. The collective's primary hive worlds detected human vessels emerging from what had appeared to be empty space. The Luminaries' energy cities found themselves surrounded by ships that their sensors couldn't even properly identify. "How?" Thexel whispered. Harris smiled on the screen, and it was not a pleasant expression. "You taught us that the galaxy was ruled by strength, so we became stronger. You taught us that technology was power, so we developed better technology. You taught us that information was the ultimate weapon, so we learned everything about you while telling you nothing about ourselves." The tactical display changed again, showing the real disposition of human forces. The Council fleet was shocked to realize that what they had thought was humanity's full military strength was actually less than 10% of their real capabilities. "The colonies you know about are our frontier settlements," Harris explained. "The colonies you don't know about are our fortress worlds. The ships you've been tracking are our merchants and explorers. The ships you've never seen are our warships." Thexel activated his own communication system. "Human, you are bluffing. No species can develop such capabilities in only 300 years. It took us 10,000 years to build our current technology." Harris's smile grew colder. "Admiral, that's your first mistake. You assume all species develop at the same rate. Humans don't just learn from their own mistakes. We learn from everyone else's mistakes too. We studied your technology, your tactics, your history. We took the best ideas from every species in the galaxy and improved on them." The display shifted again, this time showing human weapons tests. Council observers watched in growing horror as human ships demonstrated capabilities that should have been impossible. Stealth systems that made ships completely invisible to all known sensors, kinetic weapons that moved at significant fractions of light speed, energy shields that adapted to whatever weapons were fired at them. "Your second mistake," Harris continued, "was assuming that we would fight like you. You fight with honor, following ancient traditions and battle codes. We fight to win." As if summoned by these words, alarms began sounding throughout the Council fleet. Their sensors were detecting massive energy buildups from what had appeared to be empty space around them. Third mistake, Harris said, his voice now carrying the weight of 3 centuries of human preparation. You assumed our silence meant surrender. It actually meant we were getting into position. The space around the Council fleet suddenly filled with human ships as thousands of vessels decloaked at once. They had been there all along, hidden by technology the Council didn't even understand, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. But these weren't the civilian ships or light military vessels the Council expected. These were warships unlike anything in the galaxy, massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons that Council sensors couldn't identify. Fighter craft that moved in patterns that seemed to break the laws of physics, weapons platforms that looked more like floating cities than ships. Fourth mistake, Harris said as human weapons began to charge. You came to our home system expecting a surrender ceremony. Instead, you've flown into the most carefully prepared trap in galactic history. Thexel realized with growing horror that his fleet was completely surrounded. Human ships had appeared above them, below them, and on all sides. They had superior numbers, superior positioning, and apparently superior technology. How many ships do you have? He demanded. Harris checked a display and shrugged. In this system? About 50,000. In the galaxy as a whole? We stopped counting at 250,000. The silence that followed this revelation was broken only by the sound of human weapons powering up. The Council fleet, which had arrived expecting to demonstrate their overwhelming superiority, found themselves outnumbered 5-1 by ships they hadn't even known existed. This is impossible, Thexel said, but his voice lacked conviction. Admiral, Harris said, his voice now carrying a note of finality. You wanted to see what humanity was capable of. You demanded our surrender or our extinction. We choose a third option. What option? Harris's smile disappeared, replaced by an expression of cold determination that sent chills through every Council member watching the transmission. Your extinction. The human fleet opened fire. The first human weapons struck the Council fleet like hammers hitting glass. Admiral Thexel watched in disbelief as his flagship's shields, which had never failed in 2,000 years of service, simply disappeared under the impact of human kinetic rounds. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as projectiles moving at 30% of light speed punched through armor that was supposed to be impenetrable. Impossible. Commander Zix roared as his tactical displays showed damage reports flooding in from across the fleet. Our shields are designed to stop any known weapon. That's the problem, came a new voice from the human communication channel. This wasn't General Harris anymore. This was a woman's voice, calm and professional. We didn't use any known weapons. The voice belonged to Admiral Sarah Knox, commanding the human fleet from her flagship Earth's Fury. She stood on her bridge watching as 3 centuries of human preparation finally bore fruit. Council ships, Knox announced. Your shields are designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb plasma bombardments. They're not designed to stop solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. As if to demonstrate her point, another volley of human kinetic rounds slammed into the Council formation. Each projectile was a simple piece of metal, but accelerated to such incredible speeds that they carried the energy of nuclear weapons. When they hit Council ships, the results were devastating. The Zephyrian cruiser Crystal Song simply came apart as a human round punched through its entire length. The Hive Collective's bioship swarm mother writhed in agony as kinetic projectiles tore through its living hull. Even the massive granite dreadnought Stone Eternal cracked like an egg when human weapons found their mark. Return fire, Thexel commanded. All ships, return fire! The Council fleet unleashed their most powerful weapons. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains fired at maximum power. Energy beams that could crack planets lanced out toward human ships. Quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously sought their targets. The human ships absorbed the attack without apparent damage. How? Thexel whispered as he watched plasma bolts simply disappear when they hit human hulls. Admiral Knox's voice answered him. Adaptive armor, Admiral. It analyzes whatever hits it and instantly reconfigures to provide maximum protection. Your plasma weapons are now about as effective as flashlights. But the humans weren't just defending. They were attacking with a coordination and tactical flexibility that the Council had never seen before. Human ships broke into small groups that moved independently, each group attacking a different part of the Council formation. When Council ships tried to regroup, human forces would appear behind them. When they tried to retreat, human ships would block their escape routes. Captain Torres, commanding the human destroyer Retribution, demonstrated human tactical thinking when her ship was surrounded by 6 Council vessels. Instead of trying to fight her way out, she did something that horrified the Council observers. "All crew to escape pods," Torres announced calmly. Initiating ramming speed. The Retribution accelerated directly toward the largest Council ship in the group. When the aliens finally realized what she was doing and destroyed her ship with concentrated fire, the explosion of her reactor took 3 Council vessels with her. "They're insane," Commander Zix shouted as he watched more human ships conduct suicide attacks. "What species sacrifices their own ships?" "A species that's fighting for survival," Nox replied. "Every human ship you destroy takes several of yours with it. At that exchange rate, we win." This was the difference between the two sides. The Council fought to maintain their dominance, but humans fought for their existence. Council crews would surrender when their shields failed. Human crews would fight until their ships were destroyed. Council commanders followed ancient battle protocols. Human commanders did whatever worked. The battle became a nightmare for the Council fleet. Human ships that appeared to be destroyed would suddenly explode. Their reactors turned into weapons. Human fighters would ram Council vessels at full speed. Human crews would continue fighting even when their ships were falling apart around them. But the most terrifying thing for the Council was the humans' cold efficiency. There was no anger in their attacks, no hatred in their voices. They fought like machines, calculating the most effective way to destroy their enemies. "Why?" Thexel transmitted to the human fleet as his ships died around him. "Why do you fight like this? We offered you terms." Admiral Nox's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. "Admiral, let me tell you about a human colony called Terra Nova. 50 years ago, it was home to 2 million people, including 300,000 children. When they asked too many questions about Council technology, your people destroyed it completely. No warning, no ultimatum, no chance to surrender. You wiped out an entire world because they were curious." Thexel felt his crystal body grow cold. Terra Nova had been classified as a minor police action, barely worth mentioning in Council records. "You thought we forgot," Nox continued. "You thought we would accept the loss and move on like civilized species do. But humans don't forget their dead, Admiral. We remember every name, every face, every child who died because you decided they asked too many questions." The human attacks intensified. Ships that had been fighting defensively suddenly revealed hidden weapons. Kinetic rounds were replaced by something even more destructive. Nuclear warheads, antimatter torpedoes, weapons that Council ships couldn't defend against because they had been designed by a species that the Council had underestimated. For 300 years, every human who has died in the last 300 years, Nox announced as another Council dreadnought exploded, died to give us the information we needed for this moment. Every diplomat who was assassinated, every scientist who was disappeared, every colony that was destroyed, they all contributed to our understanding of your weaknesses. The Council fleet was disintegrating. Of the 10,000 ships that had entered the Sol system, fewer than 6,000 remained operational. Human losses were much lighter, and their ships fought with an efficiency that grew more terrifying with each passing minute. "Request immediate reinforcements," Thexel transmitted to the Council station. "The humans have capabilities we never suspected." But the response he received made his crystal form dim with despair. The other Council members were dealing with their own crises. Human fleets had appeared around every major Council world simultaneously. The Zephyrian homeworld was under attack. The Collective's hive worlds were surrounded. The Luminaries' energy cities were being systematically destroyed. "There are no reinforcements," came the reply from Elder Quinn. "Every Council fleet is engaged. The humans have launched simultaneous attacks across the entire galaxy." This was the true scope of human planning. They hadn't just prepared to defend themselves. They had prepared to attack everyone who had threatened them. 300 years of intelligence gathering had given them the location of every Council military base, every government center, every strategic target. "How many ships do they have?" Thexel demanded. The answer came from Admiral Nox. "Enough. We've been building ships in secret for 300 years. Every asteroid mining operation was actually a shipyard. Every research station was actually a weapons development facility. Every trading post was actually a military depot." As if to emphasize the point, more human ships began appearing in the Sol system. These weren't ships that had been hiding. These were reinforcements arriving from other battles, other victories over Council forces. This is what 300 years of preparation looks like, Nox announced as her forces closed in on the remnants of Thexel's fleet. This is what happens when you threaten a species that refuses to surrender. Commander Zix turned to Thexel, his rocky face showing defeat. Admiral, we have to retreat. If we stay here, the entire fleet will be destroyed. Thexel looked around his bridge. Half his crew was dead or injured. His ship was barely functional. Around him, the pride of the Council fleet was being systematically dismantled by human forces that had appeared from nowhere. Signal retreat, he said quietly. All remaining ships withdraw from the system. But as the Council ships tried to flee, they discovered that the humans had prepared for this too. Human ships blocked every escape route, forcing the Council forces to fight their way out. Many ships that tried to run were destroyed by human weapons before they could escape. Of the 10,000 ships that had entered the Sol system expecting an easy victory, fewer than 3,000 managed to retreat, and even those were damaged, demoralized, and carrying the news that would change the galaxy forever. The humans had not surrendered. The humans had won. And now they were coming for the rest of the Council. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The 12 grand seats that had once held the galaxy's most powerful species now sat mostly empty. Only 7 species remained, and they sat not as rulers, but as prisoners awaiting judgment. Admiral Thexel stood in the center of the chamber, but he was no longer the proud leader who had delivered humanity's ultimatum. His crystal body was cracked and dim, bearing the scars of battles that the Council had lost across the galaxy. Around him, the surviving Council members looked like shadows of their former selves. The Hive Collective now spoke with only a dozen voices instead of thousands. The Granite Kings had been reduced to a handful of survivors. The Luminari flickered weakly, their energy forms barely maintaining cohesion. Half of the Council species had been completely wiped out when they refused to surrender to human forces. The representatives of the human hegemony, announced a voice that echoed through the chamber. Through the main entrance walked 3 humans. Admiral Sarah Knox, her uniform bearing new decorations from her victories across the galaxy. General Harris, who had somehow survived the destruction of Earth's defense systems, and between them, a woman that none of the Council members had seen before. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was tall and elegant, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. She wore a simple black suit with no decorations except for a small pin on her collar. The pin showed a burning planet with the words, Terra Nova, never forgotten beneath it. Esteemed former Council members, Elena said as she took her place at the center of the chamber. Her voice was calm and professional, but it carried the authority of a species that had just rewritten the rules of galactic civilization. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, speaking for the human hegemony and our allied species. Allied species? Elder Quinn of the Luminari flickered with confusion. What allies? Elena smiled, and it was not a cruel expression, but it was not kind either. Over the past 6 months, 17 species have joined the human hegemony. These are species that the Council had marked for destruction over the next century. Species that were becoming too advanced, too independent, too dangerous to your old order. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it now existed. Large sections that had once been marked in Council colors now showed the blue of the human hegemony. Other areas showed new colors representing species that had never been allowed to join the Council. We offered them a choice, Elena continued. Join us as equals or remain under Council rule. They chose freedom. Thexel's cracked voice rang through the chamber. This is impossible. You cannot govern the galaxy. You are too young, too inexperienced. The Council has maintained peace for 50,000 years. Peace? Elena's voice grew cold. You mean the peace of the grave. The peace that comes from destroying anyone who might challenge you. We have studied your history, Admiral. In 50,000 years, you have exterminated over 200 species for the crime of becoming too advanced. She gestured to the display, which now showed a timeline of Council pacification operations stretching back millennia. Each operation represented the complete destruction of an entire species. 200 civilizations, Elena repeated. Billions of lives, all erased because they asked too many questions or developed technology that made you nervous. The Granite King Basalt spoke, his voice like rocks grinding together. Those species were dangerous. They would have brought chaos to the galaxy. No, Elena said firmly. They would have brought change. And change is the one thing your council could never tolerate. Admiral Knox stepped forward. Tell them about the real purpose of Protocol Omega. Elena nodded. For 300 years, every human in space has been working toward one goal. Not just our survival, but the liberation of the galaxy from council tyranny. We studied your methods, your technology, your weaknesses, but most importantly, we studied your victims. The display changed again, showing archaeological sites across the galaxy. Human teams were excavating the remains of civilizations that the council had destroyed. We found them, Elena said. The ruins of species you thought you had erased from history. Their art, their science, their philosophy. We learned from them. We incorporated their knowledge into our own. This revelation sent shockwaves through the surviving council members. They had believed that their victims were truly gone, their knowledge lost forever. The stealth technology that hit our fleets came from the Shadow Builders, whom you destroyed 8,000 years ago. Our adaptive armor was based on research by the Metal Singers, extinct for 12,000 years. Our tactical coordination systems were inspired by the hive mind of Kepler-62, which you exterminated 6,000 years ago. Elena paused, letting the implications sink in. Every species you destroyed contributed to your own defeat. Their knowledge lived on in the ruins you thought no one would ever find. Elder Quinn's energy form pulsed weakly. What do you want from us? The same thing you wanted from us, Elena replied. Surrender. Complete and unconditional. She activated another display, this one showing the terms of humanity's ultimatum to the Council. The irony was not lost on anyone present that the roles had been completely reversed. You have 72 hours to surrender all military assets to human hegemony forces. You will submit to trials for crimes against galactic civilization. Your territories will be redistributed to species that you have oppressed. Your technology will be shared freely with all civilizations. And if we refuse? Thexel asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. Then you will join the 200 species that came before you, Elena said simply. Complete extinction. No warnings, no negotiations, no mercy. The silence that followed was broken by King Basalt. You would commit genocide? We would finish what you started, Knox replied. The difference is that we're honest about it. You hid behind words like pacification and galactic stability. We call it what it is. Elena stepped closer to the council members. But we're not like you. We don't want to rule through fear. We want to build something better. She activated a final display, showing the new galactic government that humanity was proposing. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of a small council of ancient species ruling over younger ones, it was a democratic federation where every species had a voice. The human hegemony will transition into the Galactic Federation within 10 years, Elena announced. Every species will have representation based on their population and contribution to galactic civilization. No species will have the power to destroy another. No civilization will be held back because they threaten the status quo. This will never work, the collective said with their remaining voices. Young species cannot govern themselves. They need guidance from their betters. Their betters? Elena laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. You mean the same species that spent 50,000 years committing genocide? The same civilizations that grew so comfortable with power that they couldn't imagine a universe where they weren't in charge? She turned to address the entire chamber, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. The age of the Council is over. The age of fear and oppression is over. Tomorrow, we begin building a galaxy where species advance because of their merit, not because they're allowed to, where civilizations explore the universe without fear of being destroyed for their curiosity, where children can grow up knowing that their species won't be exterminated for asking too many questions. Thexel's crystal form seemed to crack a little more. And what of us? What of the species that built this galactic civilization? Elena's expression softened slightly. Those of you who surrender and accept trial will be allowed to contribute to the new order. Your knowledge and experience have value, even if your methods were wrong, but your time as rulers is over. She paused, looking around the chamber one last time. You have 72 hours to decide. Surrender and help us build something better, or continue to resist and share the fate of the species you destroyed. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Admiral Knox turned back to address the council one final time. You wanted to see what humanity was capable of when threatened with extinction. Now you know, we don't just survive. We remember, we plan, we adapt. and we make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." The chamber fell silent as the humans departed, leaving the council members to contemplate their choice. Outside the station, human ships waited patiently for their answer. 71 hours and 59 minutes remained. But unlike 6 months ago, everyone in the galaxy knew exactly what would happen when the timer reached 0. The age of the Galactic Council was ending, the age of the human hegemony had begun, and, in the ruins of civilizations across the galaxy, archaeologists worked to recover the knowledge of species that had been thought lost forever, ensuring that their contributions to galactic civilization would finally be remembered. The dead had their revenge, and the living had their freedom.